In today's world, we structure our very existence around the concept of time. We value the moments we have to ourselves and cherish the time spent with others. In the back of our minds, we know that this currency of interaction is fleeting, so we do our best to procure as much of it as we can without waste. This ideology is made all the more real in Andrew Niccol's 2011 sci-fi film, In Time. The film takes place in the distant future where people live to only 25 years of age, at which point their aging halts and their clock starts. Every person is genetically tied to a fluorescent green digital counter on their forearm, and at 25, everyone receives a year credit, used like money to purchase goods and services. A cup of coffee costs 4 minutes of your life, a bus ride is 2 hours, and so forth. Time can be traded and stolen by clasping your wrist to another's. If you die, your counter goes out. If you have enough time, you could live forever. But in this world, the poor die young. Their counters reach zero and they fall to their death, relieving the surplus population while the wealthy accumulate time and live as immortals. Time zones divide classes by massive walls, and the protagonist, 28-year-old Will Salas, played by Justin Timberlake, lives in the ghetto zone with his 50-year-old mother, played by Olivia Wilde. Everyone lives day to day in Will's zone, struggling to make enough time to survive until tomorrow. One evening, Will meets a man who has 100 years on his clock, but he's lived too long and wants to die. So the man transfers his time to Will and then commits suicide. Before Will can restore his mother's time, it runs out. Alone and angry, Will announces his plan to make the rich pay for propelling this grossly unfair world. He goes on the run, kidnaps the time tycoon's daughter, played by Amanda Seyfried, and sets about redistributing hours, minutes, and seconds to the needy, like a Rolex Robin Hood. Elsewhere, Will's sudden increase in time sparks an investigation by timekeeper Leon, played by Cillian Murphy. In Time manifests a powerful critic of capitalism and its drifts. This is permitted by the depiction of a brand new society in which both the poor and the rich aren't blossoming. Those are separated into two worlds thanks to the cinematic processes characterized by different palettes and juxtaposing architecture. Here, the aim of life isn't to be happy anymore, but only to have time. In Time also reveals a system that is doomed to fail, which could be thought of as the union of the proletariat with the bourgeoisie and undermining the government. One ironic thing to compare about this movie and Marxist theory is the idea of classism. In the film, the low class are the hardest working people in the world. They use every minute to work and cherish the moments they have. The rich are supposed to be naturally suited to such roles of power and are the only ones who can be trusted to perform them properly. However, individuals who have all the time in the world are hoarding unused time in their banks, making them untrustworthy and greedy. Will's mission in the film is to overcome the bourgeoisie and receive all the currency, or years, in the world. The poor will then be able to move up to wealthier areas and move up in the world. Money or time actually does buy happiness in this case, because without time, they would die. And so from a Marxist perspective, one might say that the characters have achieved the American dream. In Time is modestly stylish in a low-tech way, with sparse CGI backdrops or elaborate visuals to speak of. Cinematographer Roger Deakins shoots empty Los Angeles locales, from the concrete river to Century City, to look like abandoned scenery where the film's obvious metaphors can unfold. And while Niccol's message may be an admirable and relative one for contemporary audiences, the storytelling admittedly devolves into a lazy, actionized second half, reminiscent of a dozen other semi-forgotten sci-fi yarns. Despite this, the film's premise is brimming with potential and the prospect of something different and initially fascinating. In Time received mixed reviews from critics upon release, claiming that its premise and appealing cast are easily overpowered by the blunt, heavy-handed storytelling. Despite the lukewarm critical response, In Time is a winning sci-fi thriller that taps into some of the troubling problems of our era, such as the view of time as money, the growing gap between the rich and the poor, and all the ways that we waste time and fail to value every moment. It is also a meditation on the healing and restorative medicine of generosity and sharing. The film has crafted a cautionary tale about the possible future consequences of class consciousness, the high cost of trying to stay young or live forever, and the need for something more meaningful than just spending time to get ahead of the game. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.